how's it going? Welcome to the Guitar Effect. My name's Rob. This evening I'm going to be doing something a little different in that I won't be reviewing a specific piece of gear. I'm going to be talking about how I go about recording guitar and why I think that's interesting, as in my particular setup this evening. So before we do that, I'd like to ask you to like and subscribe so you can be kept up to date with everything we're doing here at the Guitar Effect. Okay, so why am I interested in talking about the way I go about recording guitar? And when I say that, I mean actually to the extent that this is how I track guitars at home. If I was, no matter what recording I'm doing, if I'm trying to do a serious guitar recording of any kind, this is the process by which I do it, the rig I use. So, and what's interesting about it is, until the point that it's converted into ones and zeros by my audio interface, it's actually entirely analog. And it's silent. So the first thing my guitar rig needs to be able to do is I need to be able to both make videos playing guitar and record track guitar for the bands I'm in at home for demoing. I write a lot of the music that I'm for the bands that I'm in, and so I need to be able to have a way to be able to record at home. And what's more, I've 2 children, and so I can't be making a lot of noise at night, so I need to be able to be playing completely silently, which would lead you straight to the idea of a pod or a Helix or a Kemper or something like that. But I'm a kind of analog guy. I like analog gear. I like knobs that I can turn. I like switches that I can switch. I'm not a particular fan of endless menus and everything like that. And also I like my tone to be quite immediate. I'm not looking for a plethora of different sounds. I kind of like one core sound, one core clean sound, one core dirty sound, maybe a lead sound, and then I use pedals to affect that. But even I take the analog thing for home recording to the extent where all the pedals that I use in my pedalboard are actually analog. So it's 100% analog signal chain from the pedalboard from the guitar, obviously, which is analog, into the pedals, which are all analog, into the amplifier, which is analog, and then using a speaker compensator out of the back of the amplifier into the line in the back of my audio interface, which is permanently plugged in. I've done a review of the amplifier, and I'll talk about that separately when I'm talking about it. So that's what I'm going to talk to you about tonight. And the reason that I'm making this video is I think next week what I'm going to do is, at the end of this video, I'm going to take this rig and I'm going to record some guitar parts on a track that I'm writing for my band at the moment. And we'll see how it sounds. Hopefully it sounds great. I think it will sound great. I like the way it sounds for what I'm trying to do. It's worth mentioning that the type of music I play is I play in an alternative rock band. And all the sounds I get are clean-ish rock sounds, so edge of breakup rock sounds, dirty rock sounds, and maybe the occasional bit of fuzz with a lot of delay and reverb and stuff like that. Now, the only thing that I haven't been able to achieve with the rig I have at the moment in terms of using analog effects is I don't have a really big ambient reverb in play, which I do have on my digital rig, which is my main rig that I use at my rehearsal room. But if really need be, I could add that in the DAW after the fact. So there is a spring reverb on the amp, which I'll show you as I run through everything really quickly. The main thing I'm probably going to focus on tonight is the pedal board that I use for this rig, because I think most of the tone shaping that's not just clean or drive sounds comes from there. So yeah, I'm going to show you through my 100% analog recording rig this evening and talk you through it, and then at the end I'm going to make a demo of a song using those tones. And what I might do separate to that is next week I might do the exact same thing but using the Moore GE 150 to play the exact same parts to see how a digital rig compares to an analog rig. And when I make that video next week, I'll put the 2 side by side. Cool. Okay, so my 100% analog recording rig. Let's get started. Okay, so for the purposes of tonight's demo, I obviously, I'm going to be using a few guitars, but the main guitar I'm going to use, which is kind of my favorite guitar I have at the moment, it does everything and it does everything well. To demo this rig tonight is this Telecaster. So this is my, I think it may be a Baja Telecaster. I'm not sure, but it's a 60s reissue Fender Mexican Telecaster that just has standard Mexican pickups in it, standard Mexican volume and tone. There's no grease bucket or S1 switching in this. It's just regular tele setup. One thing is I do have 11s on it, so I think that contributes to the tone, though that could be entirely in my head. I like the way it plays with 11s. I like the tension and stuff. So I'm going to be using this guitar throughout the course of this evening to demonstrate this rig. So the rig consists of the guitar, my pedalboard, which I'll show you in a moment, and the Koch Studio Tone 20, which I will touch on, but I have done an entire other video of. So I'll just go through the clean, dirty, and heavy sounds that are available in that amplifier. And also, it is being captured by the Focusrite Sapphire that I have, which is like quite an old model, maybe 6 or 7 years old, by a emulated output on the back, which has a few different options. So I have it set to on axis, and I have it set to a 112 cab to kind of emulate the sound that I have coming off my cab in the room. And that's going straight into the Focusrite Sapphire, into the line input on the back end, and straight into Logic, and that's how I record all my guitars. So this is the guitar, and the first thing I'm going to do now is I'm going to just change the camera angle to give you a look at the pedalboard. Okay, so here is the pedalboard that I use for recording. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to run through this evening, as I mentioned, is the pedalboard. My phone is taking the footage of the pedalboard, so halfway through I'm going to have to move it to show the other half of the board because the camera isn't big enough to get the pedalboard, even though it's a small board. So I mentioned playing my telly. My telly goes into this tuner here. It's just a Korg pitch black tuner, and then we go into the TC force field compressor, the Fox, the Tone City Fux Fuzz, the Mosky Mini Screamer Tube Screamer clone, and then there is a Joyo analog chorus, and then this switch here at the back is a foot switch for my amplifier, my Koch Studio Tone 20, which first thing I'm going to do is just show you the different tones of the Koch. So here is there it is, the clean channel, dirty channel, and the heavy channel. Okay, so they are the principal tones, although obviously I can tweak the EQ, I can tweak the gain settings. This amp has the ability for that third channel to have either high, medium or low gain settings, but generally the way I have it set now is a good starting point for any song I want to record, right? So if it's a clean tone, I'm using that clean tone. We roll off the tone a little bit. Yeah, so that is my 3 principal tones. At the moment I have the reverb just before 12 o'clock. There's also a bright switch and a mid shift. At the mid shift off because it is a MIDI guitar, and the bright switch in the neutral position, so it's pretty much the exact sound of the guitar. Yeah, and it's a Marshall style amp. Like I said, I've made another video which I'll put a link to now if you want to go and watch the video. This is a review of the amp I'm talking about. Sorry, it's a phenomenal amplifier, and as I mentioned, it's completely silent in the room at the moment, which is great. I'm just going to check that. It's completely silent in the room, though I do have a Jet City 112 oversized cab plugged in that does sound brilliant with it, and it's more than loud enough to gig. But as I digress, I've made a whole video about that amplifier. If you're interested, go check it out. So from there we go into the pedalboard, and the first pedal in the chain is my compressor, which sounds like this. I think it's compressing it quite severely there. I really like the way it sounds, even for pick stuff. Okay, then from there, it's a fuzz pedal. This is the Tone City Fux Fuzz. Again, I've made a video about this. It's the only fuzz pedal I have because it's the only fuzz pedal I feel I need. works really, really well. It also combines, let's go into the tube screamer then. So this is the tube screamer clone. Getting volume on. Does the tube screamer thing perfectly well to my ear. And I do use that sound actually, not a massive amount because I prefer the low gain sound off the amp, but I do use it for low gain stuff as well sometimes. That's the tube screamer. From there we go into the analog chorus. I have the rate down very, very low because I like my chorus not to be like a warbly effect. I like it just to be a presence thing, and the depth up quite high, and it sounds like with the compressor on as well. That's what that does. Okay, so after the compressor then we go into the phaser. I've obviously, as I mentioned, everything on this pedal board is analog, and I got this old Yamaha analog phaser a while ago. Just picked it up on a free ads website here in Ireland, and I just love it. I love how chewy and gorgeous it is. If you ever need a phaser, it's the perfect type of phaser sound I want. Then we come to the MP Custom Effects Voodoo Vibe here on the end of the board, and this is where it goes into the amplifier, by the way. So it goes through the compressor, fuzz, tube screamer, chorus, phaser, and this vibe pedal, which does pitch vibrato, it does tremolo, and it does uni-vibe type sounds. The main one I use is the tremolo sound. I really like the tremolo sound of it. Okay, and after that we go back into the input of the amp. So all those are in front of the amp, and then at the back of the pedal board you have the MP Custom Effects Modulus analog delay with modulation. By the way, I've made separate demos of both the Voodoo Vibe and the Modulus. The Modulus is back from when I started making YouTube videos. The video looks terrible, but it does sound good. This is a beautiful sounding pedal, so I'm just going to give you a quick listen to that now. This is in the effects loop, by the way, of the back of the amp, so I can use it with the dirty channel. Just love that delay pedal. With a bit of phaser and a bit of compressor. So yeah, that's the delay, and I have the modulation on. I can turn the modulation off, and it's just a straight up analog delay. Okay, so just to show you again maybe some of those combinations of how I use a dirty channel on the amp. Here is the basic dirty sound with the delay off. as a tube screamer. Get a cool classic rock kind of sound, then I can go over to the other channel on the amp and get a heavier sound. It's all with one guitar. Again, I can take that heavy sound and add the tube screamer and push the mids on it. Obviously I can do another combination where maybe I have the tube screamer on the dirty channel of the amp, bump the gain a little bit, and put the delay on and have a kind of atmospheric lead sound. Usual thing. And that's kind of as much as I think I need to run through in isolation. I think you'll get more of an idea of how good this rig sounds when I play it in the context of a track. So, there you have it. As I've hopefully communicated in that last demo and then recorded song, this is not a, massive rig that takes up a massive, problematic amount of space. It probably takes up the same amount of floor space as a Helix or something like that, though it is obviously taller and more bulky. As I mentioned before, you don't need the cab per se. I use the cab so I can play here at home with an amp sound in the room, and if I ever wanted to mic it up, I could do that. I don't, because I can't make noise. But as you can see, you can have an entirely analog rig for quite an affordable price tag compared to something like a Helix. Now, yes, it doesn't have the same tonal palette and variety of tones available to you that something like a Helix would, or a Kemper, or an Axe-Fx or something like that. But as I mentioned, I think it's better to have less tones and create with the tones that you do have to a more effective, individualistic style. It's going to do more for your songwriting, I think, than having endless possibilities available to you. So I hope you enjoyed that. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, next week we're going to do the same thing, the exact same sounds and song with the Moore GE150 as a alternative to this that's entirely digital. I'm even going to use a G150 as a recording interface to do it. So I'll set up the patches that are similar to the sounds I need. I might even go through how I do that using the interface that you use for it. And we'll see how it compares to a 100% analog recording rig. So that's next week. Thanks for watching. And my name's Rob. You've been watching Guitar Effect. Please like and subscribe. And I will see you next week, hopefully. Cheers. Bye-bye.